Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Michelle Padilla. I'm the host of the award show. I had taken some time off because of my dad passing last year, so I'm catching up, and so it's been kind of like a whirlwind since COVID hit. I have a special guest on today. Her name is April Dawson. I met her on State Disability Advisory Committee meeting. So April asked me how I got started. So I started it 13 years ago, and I didn't want to. I was him and hawing about doing a podcast, and that was the same time I got diagnosed with a rare disease called 22q11. It's a missing piece of a chromosome. So you got a tiny piece of a chromosome, which happens to be like the second most common to Down syndrome. So you have you have 200 symptoms. You know, you have a congenital heart defect, you have teeth issues. Some people are on wheelchairs because they can't walk, they have feeding problems. And so I found out by accident. Well, I was fighting SSI, and that's how you know how SSI goes. You get denied. They say, "Oh, you can work." No, you can't work. To what point? It's a long battle for people who have disabilities. So I took a genetic test called FISH, and that opened up the door to the podcasting. So I talked to my dad. My dad goes, "Stick to what you know. Talk about the 22q." And at the time, I was at Cal State Dominguez. We had no we call it the dungeon because we had basically hardly any internet. So we're sitting there trying to text each other, talk, say something. I could not talk whatsoever. I didn't have any contact. So Dad said, "Stick to what you know. Disability rights, 22q resources." When I was in LA, April, I had no resources availability to me. I didn't know about accessibility. I didn't know about job coaching, nothing. When I came up here, I started doing more advocating and asking people more resources, and that's how I met you. And I got lucky because I'm working at Department of Conservation, and DUR actually helped me get that job. So now I'm advocating more for people with disabilities to get their jobs.
Mhm.
And I want to know what you do for the state of California.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for having me on your show. I just think this is such a great idea that you've been able to take your story and kind of go from me to we about it and sharing resources. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. So thanks for having the space.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So thanks for asking about what I do. So professionally, I'm the executive director of the California Commission on Disability Access. And our mission is to increase disability access across California through dialogue and collaboration with stakeholders, which includes the business and disability communities, all levels of government, as well as others. And so we have been around since 2009. We were created by the state legislature.
Okay.
And our main goal is to educate businesses about the importance of being accessible to people with disabilities. And we do that through creating technical manuals and hosting regional forums across the state that brings different stakeholders together to talk about business access. And we also create toolkits and webinars as well. So we've got a lot going on, and I'm just really proud to be a part of what we do. And so that's what I do.
So it's funny how you talk about it because we took a class. I took a class at Cal State Dominguez, and I had a Professor Armstrong talking about disability accessibility. So what we did, it was an anthropology class for disability, believe it or not. What we did, we went to each building to find out whether or not it was accessible, and which was not. We had one of our students stuck in an elevator
Oh my gosh.
because it was a really old elevator
Mhm.
for over an hour. And she had tried to, and she was in a wheelchair and she was having trouble. And it was just in a bad neighborhood. So, yeah, so that's why I want to make sure that, certain buildings have the accessibilities and make sure that the parts are good. We're in, where I work at, we work in natural resources. And every now and then the elevators get stuck.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I got stuck
Oh
on a
no.
Friday for over an hour and a half. Now, see, I have stomach issues, and I didn't have stomach issues that day, but needless to say, next time bring your cell phone. And, if you look in the elevators, they don't have numbers in the what do you call it, call boxes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when I was speaking to the operator, she goes, "Would you if you like additional minutes, push 0." I'm like, "There's no 0 buttons." So in the main lobby, we had letters, but in the service elevators, it has numbers. And so it's weird. And I'm like, okay, so what happens when, the power goes out and people have, they're in a wheelchair? How do you, what combinations do you have? Or a fire breaks out and they can't go down the steps. So what can they do, April, if they get like in exam stuck in a situation like that? If they get stuck in a fire alarm or in the elevator and they have no tools, what can they do?
Yeah, I know that's a really big issue is a lot of times when different organizations are creating their plans for what's called access and functional needs. That's sort of the buzzword for making sure that people with disabilities and people who speak languages other than English or other under-resourced communities
Yeah,
have access during a disaster. So like you're right, like when the elevator goes out or or there's like an earthquake or something happens, it's really important for organizations, whether it's the state or any other organization, to make
yeah.
sure that their access plans include their access plans for disasters or those kinds of issues include people with disabilities. I mean, definitely, I think hopefully, in that situation, you could talk to the leadership there and let them know that this is happening and see what they can do to help and just make sure they may not. Sometimes I think people don't always think about people with disabilities when they're creating structures or policies or procedures, and so
Right.
bringing that to their attention, I'm sure would be really valuable for them to hear what's happening so that they can work with you to fix it. I think that's the first step, is always having that conversation and making sure that you're talking to whether it's your supervisor or, and then they can bring it up to the building people. That's really a good start, I think.
And then I noticed like some of our buses, I come from I live in Placer County, and I commute all the way up here from Rockland. And I noticed that they don't have what do you call it? Um they don't have a second door for the handicapped people because it's a really old bus since 2000. What is it? I'm gonna say 1998. That was when they first started out with the buses. It's really old down, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at it. Where are people gonna sit if they have, you know, wheelchair? So they are up. They upgraded the what do you call it? Um, buses as we speak. They're trying to make it more modernized. Um, have not less gas, but still, it's like a lot of upgrading the buses and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I started to look at accessibility because you work in a workforce and you don't see a lot of access for people who are having trouble walking, not
Mhm,
in a wheelchair, but
mhm,
having a hard time getting up the steps and down the steps. I think it should be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Compatible,
mhm.
more, you know, resources available to them in case if they can't walk down the 19 flights of stairs or if an elevator is not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They should find other options and maybe like have a guide, you know?
Mhm.
So, what do
Yeah,
you
those
think?
are all really good ideas, and um, another option too is, every state and local government agency has an ADA coordinator. And so finding out who your ADA coordinator is, wherever you work, is a good first step because you could talk with them. Definitely follow whatever procedure you have
Yeah.
internally for contacting that person. But definitely talking to them and bringing up those issues because a lot of times I hold the belief that most people want to do the right thing, and sometimes if disability is not a part of, obviously it's of course it's the law and it should be followed, but a lot of times if disability is not a part of your life, or even I make mistakes too, is I use a wheelchair, but sometimes I need to be reminded by stakeholders about disabilities that I never knew about. Like I never knew about the one that you shared. And so I think part of advocating for ourselves as people with disabilities, whether it's at the state or other places, is to just, start a conversation and say, maybe you didn't think about this when you created this program, or bought this bus, or built this elevator this way,
I
but
think,
how
yeah,
can we fix it? How can we fix
exactly,
it?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, people don't think about like we do sometimes. And then sometimes we think, okay, we have a disability, but we don't think of other people who have disabilities or have like uh sickness. Certain sicknesses, they can't breathe certain times because of their asthma, or what if a building's on fire and you can't go down 19, 20 steps, because you have a titanium rod in your leg, or somebody else's. uh, but what I was told, this is what I was told by Cal Fire: they'll carry you down the steps, 20 flights of stairs. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, but what if they hurt their back and then you go down? Then what?
Mhm.
So it was weird because Cal Fire, we had a fire drill one time. They left us in the building. They forgot all about us. And so I'm like, okay, so you guys got to get more prepared on how to deal with people with disability needs and have access to them. So we have windows, but our windows, they don't open. So
Mhm.
you can't jump out of the window and say, hey, what's going on? You can't do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So we're really stuck if, like, say, for instance, power goes out, you can't go anywhere. So you have to wait until the power goes back on. And it's like, well, what do you do? So
Yeah, that sounds like that would be a really scary thing to experience. Yeah, it sounds like you're the right person to be there to educate them. I know that sometimes it can be frustrating when people with disabilities have to be the ones to educate others when we're the ones sort of being impacted by certain situations that affect our ability to do all the things we want to do. But at the same time, the fact that you're in that position, the fact that you're in that organization will give you a chance to talk with them, and it sounds like they know you and that they really want to hear what you have to
they're,
say. So
they're trying to.
that's
They're trying
good.
to.
Yeah,
At,
that's good. That
at
sounds good.
first, I'm like, I didn't know anything like this until I started going to college. And my professor at the time, Dr. Armstrong, she opened my eyes. So I didn't know that. So she's like, and she goes, if you ever watch any Disney movie, they all have a disability. Every single one character has a disability. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I had to rewatch it again. And I'm like, okay, I see that now. I see that now. And it was interesting. And you don't think about that at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, there's so many metaphors about disability in Disney movies and other movies, and I think maybe in the past, um, some of the disability some of the disability characters might have been sort of negative stereotypes, but then if you play them back in modern times, you could see, if you think about it from that character's perspective, you could still glean something from them. And now I think they're doing a way better job with those movies about putting disability as a metaphor for strength
Yeah.
in those films.
And you would never think about it until somebody brings it up in a class
Yeah,
or something. So it's kind of
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I've
So
noticed that when I watch Disney movies with my nephews, or like recently I watched Kung Fu Panda just for fun, and I liked a lot of like how some of them were perceived as, some of the animals were like perceived as weak, but then their disabilities became their strength. And I always try to tell, like when my nephew was little, I always told him a story about like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I would always say, well, because in
yeah,
our
the red
in
nose. Yeah.
yeah, and how he was teased and made fun of, but that, when it came time for, and I shared this story just because we in our family we celebrate Christmas, and so I wanted to tell him something that he could relate to. And so I said, well, when Santa needed somebody to get through the fog,
Rudolph is there. Yeah,
Rudolph was right there. So sometimes the disability, somebody might think that's a disability, but it was actually just what that night needed. So you never
exactly.
know when it's going
Yeah.
to be a strength. Yeah.
So, April, do you know what's going on next Wednesday?
What's
I've
going
heard.
on?
So we're gonna. It's called Disco at the Capitol. I don't know if you
Oh, yes.
are.
Okay. I have heard of that. Yeah, that
Are
event.
you going to it?
Well, let me see if I can, let me see. I know a lot of people who are going,
I'm going.
but going, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So 650 people are going,
Mhm.
and it's for Medi-Cal and developmental disability services.
Mhm.
Something to do with the recent what do you call it, budgets.
Uh-huh.
So you can. There's time you can walk up there and be a part of it. You don't have to sign up at the last minute, but they'll have booths for walk-ins if they walk up, and they're going to meet with legislators, talk about your stories. And so maybe this is another idea for people to learn about disability access as well, because it'll be a good time because Medi-Cal, again, can, have people with disabilities have issues with Medi-Cal and can't get the services. So it's like, so that is why they're gonna be at Disco at the Capitol. They're trying to just be get their attention. So, I
Well,
hope you get to go.
oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I
Yes,
think that, anytime people with disabilities, get together and recognize their collective ability to make change, I think that's a really great opportunity. And it's great that all these groups are, using their voice and going to the Capitol and sharing their story because, I think that it's really important for all levels of government to hear what people with disabilities have to say and how important services are and so I think that sounds like a really powerful event. I know that when I was before I worked for the state, I was a systems change advocate for a Center for Independent Living, and we used to bring a busload of people to the Capitol every year for Capitol Action Day, and we do a lot of educational advocacy where we would educate about what the impact of legislation or cuts or other things would have on the disability community. And it was just really powerful to bring people to the Capitol to share their
to
stories.
their
So that
story.
sounds like a great
I
experience.
never got to experience anything like this, and I'm like, this is all new to me. And when I started at Cal State Dominguez, I got thrown in there as a team leader because I had no idea what I was doing. We started this association called Human Services, and I was having trouble keeping my grades up at Cal State Dominguez, and so and I also had the dean at the time. He speaks Vietnamese, so it was a language barrier. He goes, "Why should I keep you? Your grades are falling. You might be kicked out of Cal State Dominguez." I said, "I can show you that I can do it. Just give me a time." So, and the next thing I know, the president backs down of the association, gives it to me, throws me in the line of fire. I'm like, "What do you want me to do with it? I don't know anything about it." I ran with it, and it became a success.
Mhm.
And I'm just telling people that's basically what we want. We want people with disability to have their success stories, get the resources available to them if it is available to them. Some services might not be met. They might not know the services like I did because I kept on getting turned down left and right in Los Angeles. But the one thing I was very grateful for was Cal State Dominguez let me do my test on my radio show. So whatever the topic was, it could be disability, accessibility. We could talk that on the show, and they were okay with it. So they are willing. What I'm saying is they are willing to work with you, but you just have to be that voice. But I think sometimes as a kid and you transition to adult, I think they're kind of afraid because their mother and father are always going to be, protect them. There might be a time where your parents are not going to be around that much. My mom next week is going to be turning 69.
Mhm.
So it scares me because I'm the only child, and after my mom's gone, I won't have, it'd be just me. And so I'm glad for these services that they have because without these services, they would still struggle. And so, I hope that they have more services with accessibility, which people should have, but they don't. In case if the light rail goes down, what's the next option? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I know our buses, we only have 2 routes, one at, 6 o'clock in the morning and then the other one at, I say about 7 o'clock, right?
Mm.
They used to have 4, routes, but since COVID, they changed all that. So and they limit the timings and stuff like that, makes it
Mhm.
difficult. So, if you get stuck at work and you're late, you have to take the light rail, but if the light rail breaks down, what's your other opportunity? You can't afford an Uber,
Right.
so what so, sometimes people don't think like that, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, they don't think about sometimes. I think sometimes, with when people think about people with disabilities, they think about the disability first, but they don't think about the whole life of the person. Not just that, what we talk about when we go to the doctor, but like how do we get from point A to point B to do the things we need to do, like, go to the store or see our friends or just live a whole life in the community. So it sounds like again that the fact that you're going to that event and that you can use your empowerment that you have within yourself to spread that to others and
Yeah.
spread that awareness. And I know it takes a lot of effort, but
It
it's
gets tiring
really
at the
great
end
you're
of the
there.
day.
Yeah, I
People are
bet I
like
bet it does. Yeah.
people are like, "Why are you so tired?" I'm like, "'Cause I deal with stupid" well, I can't say stupid people. So, but sometimes you're thinking it in your head, you're like, you're dealing with you know, and the other thing that I worry about, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot of homeless people around this area, and some of them are very scary and sketchy. We just, we had an incident on the bus about a couple months ago. A lady, she got off and she was busy on her phone, not paying any attention. She got mugged twice over there by K Street.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and she doesn't have a disability, but I'm just saying, what happens to those who get mugged with, disabilities? How can struggle? So my mom always tells me, be alert, you know, and I see you running around with your dog, so you got your dog, you're fine, and your dog will go crazy if anybody messes with you. But there's others that, have a hard time. So that's another thing I look at as well. So,
Yeah,
um,
and I think also one of the issues that I think gets missed in that conversation about homelessness is that there's a lot of homeless people or unhoused people who also experience disabilities. And so I think the right way to talk about these issues is to make sure we don't pit people with disabilities against other people with
yeah,
disabilities or different groups against each other. I think most of the unhoused people just are trying to make it through the day, but I know that I have heard too. I also live downtown, and
yeah,
so, I try to not make assumptions about different people, but I also just try to stay aware and walk in groups. But it's sad because you shouldn't have to feel that way when you're in your
exactly,
own
exactly.
community. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm sure. So I think how to solve that is to just make sure that we remember that you never know what's going on with another group. We never know what's going on with a person or a group. You want to make sure that we always treat people the way we want to be treated.
exactly.
And
Kind and yeah.
yeah.
So my question is, so what kind of services do you offer? Does the accessibility disability offer? Like, what do they offer?
So our organization doesn't offer any direct services, but we do work with a lot of organizations in the community that do offer services. So the programs we provide are listening forums for businesses and people with disabilities throughout the state. Those are like sort of mini conferences where we have conversations about how to make different communities accessible. We also collect data that shows us sort of the top um, disability access violations that a business might encounter if they don't plan for access. And so we create toolkits about those. like we created like an accessible parking toolkit for businesses recently. So mostly what we do is education and outreach and technical expertise, and partnering with other groups. But we do work a lot with the local centers for independent living. So I would highly encourage your listeners to contact their local center for independent living, because they have like housing resources and advocacy resources. And if someone contacts us, even though we don't do those things, we can direct you to who does do those things.
Yeah. So my question is, besides the bus transportations and the Amtrak trains, what other accessibility transportation would you recommend people coming to downtown? Because you know that they are going to make it mandatory coming at the end of May, 2 days a week. So, and if they have, uh, disability issues, so what other transportation would be better for them? And that's not expensive.
Oh, it's just speaking personally, I think definitely if you go to the, I know that the RT website has like a trip planner app you can download on your phone. That could be helpful. And I know that that the local buses are trying to make things better in terms of adding more routes back from COVID. And maybe also, if you feel like there needs to be more routes, you could always go to your accessibility advisory committee. Most if not all major transit centers have those. I know in Sacramento we call it the MAC. I used to be on that, the MAC, the Mobility Advisory Committee, where you could say, I'm going back to work more often and there's not enough routes for people with disabilities, and what can you do about it? And then they can become aware and they could start to work with you to make change to those routes and prioritize those. I think you mentioned a lot of good ones like Amtrak and the bus, and
Well,
I
I know at one point they had taxi drivers out here a lot.
yeah,
But even then, that is expensive. It's like, geez. So I calculated one time, I think it was like $45 or $50 from Rockland to Sacramento. And that's like a 30-minute commute. I'm like, dang. So I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah, and I think what you're sharing is definitely not just unique to employees with disabilities. I think all of us have kind of gone from that COVID, getting used to working from home 5 days a week, to needing to make that hybrid shift. And I know that it affects everybody in different ways. And so just being communicative about how that affects you, and trying to talk to, your local, transportation authorities about how it affects you as a person with a disability in particular is helpful, so they can, because as big companies and agencies make shifts like this, the community, it does make a shift in services and, community things. And so it's important for everybody to be on the same page about that, and
yep.
make sure that
Oh,
everybody's ready for you to come back, and that.
my window just popped up. We got 10 minutes
Oh,
left.
okay, awesome. Well, we're getting deep. We're
So, also we have a mutual friend, Peter Mendoza.
Oh yes, I love Peter.
Yes, I'm also on the disability RAC committee for Disability Council, and so he's really great. And like I said, I didn't even know these services were available until I went to Oxford. I started getting more involved in advocacy, and then I'm like, I didn't know that was existed. I didn't know about that because
Yeah,
LA is so huge,
yeah,
you don't even know where to look at, you know.
yeah,
And like I said, who's going to help you? Nobody's going to help you in LA. You're gonna try, you're gonna get turned down, and it's a mess. Here you get your services, you get everything. Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay. So April, so what events are you having up next? What's the next events that you are planning?
So our next event is going to be a listening forum in Salinas on April 11th from 3 to 5. It's both on Zoom and in person, and it is for It is meant for the local disability and business communities and the local government to come together to talk about business access in Monterey County. So that'll be on April 11th. We're also going to be hosting a webinar with the city of Sunnyvale on April 17th. All this information you can find on our website. If you go to dgs.gov/ccda. We're also on Facebook now and on YouTube. So if you can't make it to these events, you we will be posting them to our YouTube channel, the recordings of them. And we're also planning a partnership with the Pacific ADA Center to bring webinars about different topics related to business access to the community. So we're going to be having a webinar coming up on May 30th. Which will be about service animals and also Title III of the ADA and basics about business access, sort of building blocks. And then later in the year, we're going to have other webinars where we're going to talk to businesses about planning for access during busy seasons like holidays and how to plan for access around creative events and thinking about all types of disabilities. And we're also going to be having a presentation in July with Pacific ADA online about the ADA and how far we've come in 34 years and some of the recent court cases that have come out about access. And so that's really exciting. And all of our programs are fully accessible. We provide accommodations and language access translation as well. So we can have ASL and captioning and language translation at all of our events. And so for all of our webinars and listening forms, we always have ASL and captioning and language translation no matter what. So it's just there. Usually what we do for the language access is we have the threshold languages for that community there. But if you need another language, you can just follow the directions on the flyer and contact us, and any other accommodations you need for any reason, we can provide those.
And then one final note, how can they contact you? Like for information. Can you give your information out or can they email you if they have any
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely. So you could reach our general mailbox at ccda@dgs.ca.gov. It's okay. And also you could email me personally too at april.dawson@dgs.ca.gov. It might be better if you start with the general mailbox about events, because if I'm out somewhere, I may not see it right away, and our staff can write it back faster than me. But anybody's welcome to talk to me too. So
And we're just to let you guys know, we're on iTunes, Podomatic, Amazon, all the social media. So YouTube, Alexa, Pandora, you can find us anywhere. So as soon as I'm done, I'll post this up on YouTube and then I'll share it with April and then we can share it on Facebook. So again, I'm coming back from hiatus. So look for us at the Capitol next Wednesday. It's going to be a big event, 650 people plus. It's hashtag disco at the Capitol. Look for us there. And hopefully you guys can come out, rain or shine. We're going to go have fun. So see you guys next week. And before I forget, May 19th is our zoo event. April, I'm gonna send you a flyer to that.
oh,
So
great.
it's for people who have 22q, and you get to find out all these wonderful things about 22q and how many health issues they have and their stories. So it's kind of cute. So we asked you guys where read that day, May 19th. I'll send you a flyer for that. All right, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. And thank you.